So friends, welcome to the 256th session of Legal Empowerment through Interaction lecture series. Today we are touching upon a very sensitive topic because whenever anything to do with children or minors or child arises, it has to be taken care of very, very carefully. Can a constitutional remedy like habeas corpus be indiscriminately used or judiciously used, or how far it can be used is the question that we'll be trying to address today. And we have the master of the subject, Anil Malhotra sir, to address on that. We are privileged with the presence of Justice Ramkumar sir, Justice Ramakrishnan sir, and all of you wonderful participants in this journey of discovery, enlightenment, and empowerment. So, sir, without wasting any time, over to you, directly to you, sir, Anil Malhotra sir.
Thank you, Shyam. I have been deliberating and contemplating speaking on the subject after a litigation which I recently concluded in the High Court. And the backdrop of it is so interesting that I would like to spell out the facts which led to this intriguing exposition of the scope of habeas corpus revisited in 2021, which to me, after 37 years in the professional field, also sounded a revision and a reminder of the principles ingrained in constitutional law. Now, before I go into this, where was habeas corpus? How did it originate in law? So it was 491, section 491 CRPC of the CRPC 1898 in the pre-partition period, that the power of issuing habeas corpus was conferred upon the High Court through section 491 of the CRPC 1898. Now, this section empowered the High Court to issue writs in cases of illegal or unlawful detention in a public or a private, who were in public or private custody. And there was no issue of any state against whom a writ could be issued, because the habeas corpus would lie against a private person also. Now, it enabled the High Courts to cause detainees to be produced before it, so as to justify that they are dealt with in accordance with law and are not being held unlawfully. Now, thereafter, after independence, section 491 was the only enabling provision for issuing habeas corpus. But then CRPC was amended in 1973, Constitution took an amendment, and now the habeas corpus is in the Constitution under section 226 and under Article 226 and under Article 32, whereby the provision reads, particularly 226, notwithstanding anything in Article 32, every High Court shall have powers throughout the territories to which it exercises jurisdiction to issue to any person, authority, including appropriate cases, any government within whose jurisdiction, direction, orders, or writs, including writs in the nature of habeas corpus. So the territory or the boundary of habeas corpus for the High Court has been limited to the jurisdiction to which the writ runs. Now, I am going to dwell on this specifically because nowadays the question arises, how far would the writ go? Would it extend to beyond the territories to the jurisdiction of India? If a child was within the jurisdiction of the High Court but is taken abroad, would the writ lie to return the child? So 32 says the right of the Supreme Court by appropriate proceedings for enforcement of the rights conferred by this part. Supreme Court shall have power directions to issue writs, including writs in the nature of so and so. Without prejudice, the Supreme Court may cause or by any law to exercise the local limits of jurisdiction, all or any powers exercised by the Supreme Court. So these are the parameters of where CRPC was pre-independence, post-independence, and as of now. So habeas corpus is a criminal writ by nomenclature. Whenever you file it, it is always be labeled as CRWP or CRLWP. it will never be labeled as a CWP. But it is always filed under 226. You can add 482 additionally, but a habeas corpus would not lie under 482 exclusively, because the power flows from 226 or the power flows from 32. So this is the scope of the writ of habeas corpus. Now, the oldest case in the Indian history regarding habeas corpus through the old code was Gohar Begum versus Sughi, 1960, Supreme Court 93. Now, this was a case where children had been taken away by a Muslim woman by an aunt, and the children were directed to be returned. And it's a short, crisp, brief, succinct judgment. And it simply says that where the welfare of the child is involved, the High Court, as parents betray, exercises writ jurisdiction to return the child. No 200 pages have been written. It's a short 2 or a 3-page judgment, clear, succinct, and brief to the point. Now, let us come to the case which I dealt with currently. Now, this is a case of a North Indian couple of Hindu religion, of Indian nationality by birth. The husband has a British passport, has taken British nationality. Mother has Indian passport, but has permanent leave to remain in the UK. After marriage in India, they moved to England and they lived there for about 9 or 10 years. They have 2 children, a daughter aged about 10 years of age with an Indian passport, a son about 2.5 years old, born in England, and therefore, but has an Indian passport. So the nitty-gritty of children born to Indian nationals in foreign countries is you have an option. You can go to the Indian embassy or the Indian consulate and say, I am a citizen of India. My child has been born abroad. This is the declaration, and the consulate or the embassy will give you an Indian passport. But because you are born in the jurisdiction in that country, you can also walk up to the authorities of that country and say, my child is born in your country. Please give me a British or an American or a Canadian passport. The bottom line of this is that if you do so, Article 9 of the Constitution and Section 9 of the Citizenship Act does not allow you to take an Indian passport. You cannot hold 2 passports. You cannot hold dual nationalities. But there is also a provision in the Citizenship Act that such a child, if holding 2 passports, can have them, but has to give up 1 passport when he or she turns of 18 years of age and makes a conscious choice to retain 1 passport. So the fact of the matter here is, except for the father, all the 2 children and the wife or the mother have Indian passports. They return back to India. They start living in a rented accommodation because compatibility of the family to live with the parents of the father did not work out. Now, the husband or the man had to go to US for some work. He got stuck in the pandemic, could not return. The wife with the 2 children relocated to her parents' place in North India. Now, when this man came back from the US after the COVID restrictions were lifted, he went to his wife, but she refused to go back. There was some kind of a misunderstanding between them. She declined. He filed a petition for restitution of conjugal rights. He kept in touch with his family. But on one occasion, somewhere in the month of May 2021, much to his horror, when he spoke to his wife, She told him that I am in England with my 2 children. And she says, I have gone here because I have to revive my permanent residency rights. So he was aghast because he was horrified that she had traveled during the pandemic, so putting such children to risk. So he, being legally empowered, filed a petition in the High Court at London, invoking its inherent jurisdiction, seeking the return of his 2 children back to India. So the English court seized the passport, but found only one passport of the daughter and the mother, and directed that the lady should not leave England, and gave the father contact rights on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. British time, which would mean that it would be 10:30 at night in India. Now, after the father got this order, whenever he would talk to his son, he would find that the son was asleep, or there would be a muted black screen, and he was not able to communicate. On one occasion, he noticed a ceiling fan. So he got wary and suspicious, and he, along with his mother, brother, and sister, went to his in-laws' place. And there he found his son playing in the street. And he came to him and got attracted to him. Meanwhile, an altercation resulted and he was assaulted. He was hospitalized for 2 days. And when he recovered, he came to me. He had already also filed a habeas corpus petition in which notice has been issued. So I immediately moved a miscellaneous petition explaining the facts of the case and saying that the child purportedly made out to be in London is physically in the jurisdiction of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and therefore either a warrant officer be appointed or the local superintendent of police be asked to verify what is the exact status. So the court passed an interim order, and the superintendent of police was directed to produce the child by video conferencing. And much and lo and behold, the child was found to be in India with the maternal grandparents and had not gone to England. So the question arose, now which court is going to decide what is going to be the nature of the custodial arrangement? Now the respondents, that is the wife and her parents, took up an objection that there cannot be 2 parallel remedies invoked in 2 different jurisdictions for the same relief. So it became very complicated. So I urged before the judge in India that there is a misrepresentation. The child is in your jurisdiction. You are parents portray to this child. Therefore, insofar the child, minor child in your jurisdiction is concerned, my relief in the High Court of London is infructuous, because the child admittedly not being in England, the High Court at London had no jurisdiction, and therefore only the Punjab and Haryana High Court could exercise its jurisdiction under the powers under 226. But then an objection was also raised by the respondents that for the remedy of recovering the custody of the child, habeas corpus would not be maintainable. I have to go and seek my relief under the Guardian and Wards Act. So this became more perplexed. Then the other side also urged that the child is a British national, therefore British law will apply to him and he will be deemed to be a resident of Britain. So this point I thrashed out with the judge by saying the boy is entitled to British citizenship. He hasn't got British citizenship. Father and mother have opted to take the Indian passport, so the child is still an Indian national. If they had taken a British passport, he would have had British nationality. So British nationality will not occur. But then the matter got still more complicated when the wife in England alleged domestic violence, filed a divorce petition in England, and also prevailed over the High Court at London to issue an emergency travel document through the Home Office in England and have a direction issued to the British High Commission in Delhi that the child should be transported to UK. So an emergency travel document is issued by all countries when, for a single journey, when a passport cannot be issued or a passport is lost, stolen, etc., etc. Now, the judge in the Punjab and Haryana High Court had already directed that the child will not be taken out of the jurisdiction of the court. So my averment to the court was that this step being taken is going to cause more conflict, and the respondents are in contempt by seeking that remedy or relief in that jurisdiction. And why would the child be required to be present in UK? So the averment made there was that there is an agency called CAFCAS. It's a investigative body of the government which goes into the welfare of children. So they said the CAFCAS has to make a report on the welfare of the child. So I told the judge the child has been in India since 2019. The welfare of the child can be assessed by whomsoever is concerned here. Why should the child be transported to England? So the judge was also clearly of the view that a 2.5-year-old child will not be relocated to England. His maternal grandparents, his paternal grandparents, his natural father, his family, extended family is all here. And the lady had gone only for the purposes of seeking a permanent residency validity reassessed. So this became, with every hearing, the matter became more and more complicated. So the judge said, what do we do? What do I see? It became so complicated that we had to pen questions what the judge would decide. So questions of nationality, questions of citizenship, question of the scope of habeas corpus, question of which court would decide. Should one court stay its hands? Should the other court go on? Now these became very gray areas. The initially High Court at London was not aware that the proceedings were pending here. But then the interim orders of this court were produced before that court, and that court, to limited in a very judicious extent, decided that the order for the issuance of an emergency travel document will not be enforced. So they said, we don't want the child to come here. So the child should be kept in that country and let the court decide what is to be done with the child. Now, the wife's counsel kept on saying that the child will return, that the mother will return, provided the father gives up his claim for abduction and kidnapping in UK. Now, internationally, child removal is a wrong or an offense under the Hague Convention on Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction 1980, signed by 105 countries, but not signed by India. So in India, if a parent removes the child from the custody of the other parent, it is neither a civil wrong nor a criminal offense, though 361, 362, 363 talk of kidnapping of children, but when it is obviously interparental, that does not apply. So interparental child removal is not a wrong or an offense, but in the US, it's a federal offense. You can be handcuffed, you can be put in jail. In England also, it is viewed seriously. So the wife said, if this case stands against me, I will always be labeled or dubbed as an abductor. So I don't want this to go on. Now, when the husband sought to withdraw his petition in the High Court at London, the court said you cannot withdraw. The barrister, now there again, we have a solicitor and a barrister. The solicitor asked the barrister, and the barrister said, you cannot withdraw this petition now, because the court has set it down for a hearing and the court has issued interim directions. So this further complicated the matter. So I urged the judge that you please go on and you decide. The judge says the High Court of London will also pronounce. We'll wait for it. I said, you hear it. So ultimately, in a marathon hearing, which lasted till 9, just before we broke for the Dashera break, till 9 p.m. For a 5-hour marathon hearing, arguments were heard and the judgment was reserved. But then the judge expected that this was 14th of October 2021. The judgment has been pronounced on 16th of November. I have circulated it. 2021. So the High Court has now issued directions that the child will be handed over to the father by the maternal grandparents. They have sought time to appeal. So the judge has said, you will do it on 6th of December 2021 and the child will be handed over. He says, I don't want the child to go to the police station, which was a very sensible decision. Child will be taken to the court of the Chief Judicial Magistrate in that city and the child will be produced there. The mother has been permitted to have interaction with the child daily from England. Now, the maternal grandparents wanted to have contact with the child and her counsel pressed that the child should be brought to meet the maternal grandparents. So I told the judge, I said, this is going to be very complicated. There are very bitter relationships. So video conferencing or contact through phone or WhatsApp or email has been permitted for the grandparents also, maternal grandparents, thrice a week. Now the moot question which arose was, what is the right of the father and what is the right of the grandparents? How far do we sustain the objection of the scope of habeas corpus? My argument before the judge was, habeas corpus is a remedy under 226 available to me by virtue of a natural guardian. Under Section 6 of the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, father and the mother are natural guardians. Custody of a child less than 5 years of age should go to the mother, though Lahari Sakhamuri has toned it down. But then the issue was, if I have a right to custody and the custody is taken away from me, unless I am declared unfit by the guardian judge under Section 19 of the Guardian and Wards Act, custody cannot be taken away from me. So therefore, I told the judge, my limited right of the custody of my child under Gohar Begum and under Ruchi Maju. Now, Ruchi Maju is a judgment of the Supreme Court by Justice Tirath Singh Thakur. And in Ruchi Maju, the principle laid down, first of all, the citation of Ruchi Maju, AIR 2011, Supreme Court 1952. AIR 2011, Supreme Court 1952. So, in Ruchi Maju, Justice Thakur has laid down the scope of habeas corpus to say, very, very beautifully put, that insofar a guardian judge, first he defines the jurisdiction of the guardian judge. He says the jurisdiction of a guardian judge is confined to a place where the child ordinarily lives, under Section 9 of the Guardian and Wards Act. If under Section 9 of the Guardian and Wards Act, the guardian judge finds that the child does not reside in the jurisdiction of his court, then the guardian judge has no jurisdiction to pass any order whatsoever and has to return the petition to be filed before the competent court. This may be on a preliminary objection of jurisdiction, or this may be on a issue being framed under Order 14, Rule 2, Sub-Rule 2 as a decision on jurisdiction. But then Ruchi Maju, Justice Thakur expounds to say, going into 226, if a child is found in the jurisdiction of a court, a high court, or the Supreme Court under 32, whether legally or illegally, whether this high court has any power or it does not have any power, it can pass any order in its parent's peculiar jurisdiction vested in it by the Constitution of India. So this is a beautiful expounding that the power of the High Court under 226 and the power of the Supreme Court under 32 is unlimited. and they can direct the return of a child. Of course, now we have Nityanand Raghavan, we have Lahari Sakhamuri, and we have subsequent judgments also, where Supreme Court says it has the power to hold a short inquiry, it has the power to hold a detailed inquiry, it has the power to return, it has the power not to return, it has the power to remand to the guardian judge or pass any other order. So my argument to the judge was, child is in your jurisdiction, you are parents betray, I am the natural father, please restore the custody to me because it is my natural right as a guardian. And I do not have to go to the guardian judge to seek a declaration of my right as a guardian because that is ingrained in me, it is implicit in me, it is inbuilt in me. Now I said, let us compare the situation vis-a-vis the maternal grandparents. My proposition was, if the maternal grandparents, by virtue of any so-called right vested in them, have a preferential claim over and above me, then they have to invoke the remedy under the Guardian and Wards Act to be declared and appointed as guardians on the principle of the welfare of the child. So if they have a preferential right, a superior claim, or an overriding right over and above me, they are the ones who have to go and seek interim custody legally in a petition for guardianship and custody. The averment made was that the natural mother had left the child with her parents. So therefore the custody was implicit through them. But the natural mother had left the child for whatever reason and had gone. And she was not interested in coming to look after him here. She is only interested in taking him back there. But the question is, as long as that does not happen or may not happen, can the father be deprived of the custody of the child? So the answer by the court was no. The father, being natural guardian, gets the custody because he has an inbuilt, implicit, and an ingrained right under his position as a father. And if the grandparents want, they can go and take a remedy under the court. But the resistance of handing over the child is so strong that they do not want to return the child. The father is supposed to be having video conferencing access, even that is not allowed. So it has resulted in hardening of so many approaches and attitudes that the acrimony is very, very strong. Now, again, more interesting issues cropped up. Matter was reserved on 14th of October. 8th of November, the High Court of London passed another order saying, now this is in the petition filed by the father for inherent jurisdiction invoking for return of his children. Now, in this petition, the High Court of London has passed a judgment directing that the mother and the daughter are allowed to stay in England and they will not go back. They also observe that it is in the best interest and welfare that the son also be reunited with the mother and and his sister. And for this purpose, this matter will be considered by the High Court of London in February 2022 because the Punjab and Haryana High Court is currently seized the matter. And it is for the High Court to decide. So now, despite the High Court here deciding that the child will remain here, the child will not go to England, the question still left pending in February 2022 overhangs. I don't know what will happen in the future. Matter will obviously either way go to Supreme Court and will get settled. But it has opened up a Pandora's box of jurisdictions, of citizenship issues, of passport issues, of scope of habeas corpus, But it has been an opportunity to relook at the law in a big transparent way about where things are to go. And the sole consideration on which the judge has gone, he says it is not in the welfare of the child to go to England. He's too small. Mother is not having any regular income or a permanent job. She doesn't have a permanent place to stay. To the contrary, there is extended family on both sides in India. Natural father is here. But then the allegation of the mother is that the father also travels a lot, so the child will left with the paternal grandmother. So on my undertaking, the court passed a direction that the father will not go abroad for the next 6 months because he has to bond with the child and he has to stay close to the child, which is a very fair decision. But the judge said it is time. It was a very, very good observation. He says the father must get to bond with the child. Father and son need to develop an interaction. He has been away for a long time. Father has been with maternal grandparents. Child has been with maternal grandparents. Therefore, bonding is necessary. So this is something which, in terms of alienation, is required. And I was able to point out to the judge that the daughter being with the mother is already into alienation because there were signs, there was expressions, there was exchange of messages which showed that the child was perhaps doing things which she ought not to be doing, but this reflected seriously on a lot of issues of this nature. So this is the broad backdrop of the issues which opened up the whole things. Now I'll quickly do a rundown on the law on different issues in the subject. So Shioli Hathi, this is a judgment of 2019. Shioli Hathi 2019 7 SCC 490. Shioli Hathi 2019 7 SCC 490. So this says welfare of the child is the sole consideration on which decision should be made. Then principles on custody, relation to custody of the child. So we have Gayatri Bajaj 2012 12 SCC 471. 2012 12 SCC 471. But the basic decision of the Supreme Court followed everywhere is Rosie Jacob. Rosie Jacob 1973 1 SCC 840. 1973 1 SCC 840. It says not physical custody, education, health, maintenance, everything has to be done, and weightage has to be given to the natural guardian, whether father can promote the welfare of the child. Then some very hard observations. Children are not mere chattels, nor are they toys. Absolute rights over destinies of children must yield to welfare. Gaurav Nagpal 2009 1 SCC. Gaurav Nagpal 2009 1 SCC 42. 2009 1 SCC 42. Then better financial resources cannot supersede love and welfare. This is Mausami Ganguly, Mausami Ganguly, Ganguli, 2008 7 SCC 2008 7 SCC 673. Then the oldest decision on welfare by Justice Y.V. Chandrachud in 1984 still followed, holding good that the jurisdiction which has closest contact to determine welfare, Surinder Sandhu, 1984, 3 SCC 698. 1984, 3 SCC 698. And Ruchi Maju, as I mentioned earlier, Ruchi Maju is 2011, 6 SCC 479. Ruchi Maju 2011, 6 SCC 479. Then Neel Ratan Kundu. This is a case where the grandfather was given custody when the father was jailed for the mother's murder. Neel Ratan Kundu 2008, 9 SCC 2008, 9 SCC 413. 2008, 9 SCC 413. Then parental alienation, Justice Sikri's judgment. Very well written. Vivek Singh. Vivek Singh, 2017, 3 SCC, 2017, 3 SCC 231. 2017, 3 SCC 231. Then a very good enunciation of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is maintainable. Law is very clear. Justice Bhanumati's judgment. Tejaswini God, Tejaswini God, GAUD. Tejaswini God, 2019, 7 SCC 42. 2019, 7 SCC 42. And the latest settled three-judge by last word, Lahari Sakhamuri, Lahari Sakhamuri, Sakhamuri, 2019, 7 SCC 311. Two judgments of the Andhra Pradesh High Court in a Guardian and Wards Act petition and habeas corpus upheld by Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has very well expounded habeas corpus is maintainable. Section 6 of the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act giving exclusive custody of a 5-year-old child to the mother is watered down. Love and welfare to prevail. No vested right. Section 2(9) of the Juvenile Justice Act, best interest of the child to be read in. And Supreme Court has expounded this beautifully in this judgment. Then a very good enunciation by Justice Vikramjit Sen on whether custody orders are permanent or can change. This is ABC versus State. ABC versus State, 2015, 10 SCC 1. 2015, 10 SCC 1. Now in ABC, it was an unwed mother seeking a birth certificate without the name of the father. And this is where the Supreme Court went into issues of custody and guardianship at length again. Then visitation, Roxanne Sharma versus Arun Sharma. Now, non-custodial parent must have rights of visitation. A lot of criticism has been used in the word visitation now. Visitation, people say, is meant for people in jail. So visitation should be rephrased to parenting time. It's a very healthy concept. Anyway, Roxanne Sharma is 2015, 8 SCC 318. Now, another very important enunciation on Committee of Courts, Forum Convenience is Nityanand Raghavan, 2017, 8 SCC 454. Nityanand Raghavan, 2017, 8 SCC 454. Now, Justice Madan Lokur had given a very good judgment in Suryavadanan in 2015. He had laid down the principle of first strike, forum convenience, and committee of courts. Supreme Court in Raghavan scored out theory of first strike, which meant whichever court takes jurisdiction first, Supreme Court said is not a good idea. Supreme Court also watered down forum convenience, saying there is no forum convenience in committee of in child custody matters. Only principle Supreme Court upheld was that the jurisdiction of closest contact will have the best interest determined, and therefore this is the short point the Supreme Court in Raghavan has laid down. Then Lahari Sakhamuri is following this. So this is broadly the law laid down by the Supreme Court. Now, there is one thing I must share with you. The concept of parental custody, rights of natural guardians, keeps doing a flip-flop as and what the Supreme Court says from one time to time. This is the beauty of the Supreme Court being a court of record and airing its views on the issue. But it is also primarily for the reason that parental child removal is a concept which finds favor with some bench, but does not find favor with another bench. So if it is done by the mother, some benches thought it was no wrong. It was done by the father. It was considered to be wrong. But now it is coming to a balancing stage. Whether father or mother, I think Supreme Court is seeing this equally on equal platters. But then paternal preference or maternal preference has always been a gray area. And this is a bone of contention in habeas corpus matters. The first objection you face in a habeas corpus is, how is the petition maintained? So unless you have an enlightened bench, it is very difficult, from my experience of appearing in courts over India, to impress upon a judge, because the traditional concept of a habeas corpus is man is in lockup, man is in forced labor, man has been imprisoned and kept without inquiry, without an FIR, please release him. So trying to import the traditional concept of a habeas corpus into child-centric jurisprudence is like putting a square peg in a round hole. So unless and until the comfort level, the understanding, and the sensitivity of the child issue is brought forth, and the bench is told that you are looking at a human being, not a table or a chair or a piece of property, that the scope of habeas corpus is not really well made out. So therefore, you have to tread on this path very carefully. Sometimes shortage of time, particularly in the pandemic times, leads to great difficulty. And then, in a matter which I did recently and assisted the court as an amicus, it took almost 2 years for a child to go back to his natural father. He had come for treatment here. The judgment is reported in Kiran Bhaskar's case. But the mother refused to go back, saying the child is well settled. Maternal grandparents are in a very good position. You know, Shyam, you have a division bench sitting with you.
That's right. I mean, the application of K. Vijay Rao was immediately allowed. And
habeas corpus.
KG Rao mentioned the matter. KG Rao mentioned the matter, and habeas corpus was allowed.
Produce the not only produce the body, but produce with all the legal.
legal.
And that too, without undergoing an interview, he was permitted to appear party in person.
Sir, somehow I realized that this was all engineered by Shyam to make the impact of habeas corpus in child environment is more emphatic.
That cannot be rolled out.
Very true. Like Ramkumar sir said, it cannot be rolled out. It need not be.
So, Shyam, with these words, you have rendered me speechless. I have nothing. I say, my lord.
Some connectivity problems.
Am I audible now?
No, perfect.
Voice is breaking.
Okay. What I'm saying is, this last argument of the respondent side has left me speechless. Therefore, I will rest the matter with the bench.
Then I'll do one thing. I'll go directly over to Ramkumar sir.
Absolutely.
For the verdict.
A forensic treat on the parental child removal and the expanse of the habeas corpus jurisdiction. Beautifully, with reference to case law. Beautiful articulation. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ramashan sir. Ramashan sir.
One doubt. I have one doubt.
Yes,
now, since the mother had not physically removed the child to England,
yes.
In that case, can she be guilty of that removal?
No.
Of course, she had left the child with her parental home.
But sir, I switched sides. You know what I did? I said, because she had left a breastfeeding baby alone with her parents, she had neglected him, and therefore, in the welfare and interest of the child, it was no longer conducive for the child to remain without another natural guardian, the father who was available. So my argument of abduction was negative. It never proved, never established. But welfare of the child came in, and in the welfare of the child, there was no reason, and there is the paternal grandmother, the Dadi, who can look after the child. So this gave me a cause to step in for habeas corpus.
Yes,
but the clash came because the English High Court issued an emergency travel document. I told the judge, this is per se contempt. He says, we cannot bring in so many things. It will only complicate the matter. Let's keep on course. I think it was a very wise and a sensible thing which the judge did. He did not get carried away by violations, contempts, insinuations going on media, social
The
media.
welfare of the child was paramount in his mind.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Parent patrie jurisdiction.
But this is truly understanding parents betray by the judge, because I told the judge, my lord, the child is in your jurisdiction, rightly, wrongly, happily, sadly. You are Bhisham Pitama. You are his godfather. You have to do what you think you should do to protect his interest. He says, I'm not sending a 2.5-year-old child to England in this pandemic. But I told him, I said, listen, the situation is so severe that despite the undertaking given, see, the child's passport was missing. They said they don't have it. Mother says, I don't have it. So I told the judge, where is it? The judge says, let us not complicate the issue. Leave the passport alone. But I had a fear that if an emergency travel document was issued, they might whisk the child out, take him to Delhi and put him on a plane. So that overawing fear that if the child is taken out, now this is another question. I told the judge, the moment the child is taken out of your jurisdiction, my habeas corpus is infructuous. Because your boundary is Punjab and Haryana. So if you are in Delhi, end of story. So it was a very precarious situation to do. It was very complicated. I have never seen so many things coming up and two jurisdictions going on parallel. See, in England, they have a sort of a association called International Family Law. So in International Family Law, they have a liaison judge. So every country in Europe, all over, practically has a liaison judge. We had one in the Supreme Court. Justice Vikramji Sen was the last. We don't have one now. Now here the judges are supposed to talk to each other and see what we can do. But our country is so vast, and no High Court judge is going to, or a Supreme Court judge is going to talk to another judge in another country when a judicial matter is posted before him, because our thinking is different. So this was a very tricky situation, and I still don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what Supreme Court is going to do, because the English High Court thinks that it is in the welfare of the child to be reunited with his mother and his sister. Now this is another angle. Where is the balance?
And in certain matters, father cannot do certain things which the mother can.
Sir, but I beg to differ with you.
Especially if it is a breastfeeding child.
Sir, all right. See, the child has been on bottled milk for almost 5 months now.
In the parental home.
Obviously.
Grandparents.
With the maternal grandparents. So now the argument of the father is that when the child was born, the paternal grandmother looked after him and she's very well bonded with the child. So she can take care as a grandmother, she can take care of the child. She may not be able to give him the breastfeed, but probably the child is eating orally, is on powder milk or other things and supplements. See, nowadays 1.5, 2-year-old children walk and talk. Things have changed. I mean, the time is gone when a child was to be 3 years or 4 years to walk.
Precocious. They are more precocious than that.
Children are now very vibrant. Children are very, they grow up very fast.
Yes.
So in such a perspective, the other thing which I really liked about the judge, he says it's in the welfare of the child to be bonded with the father. He has been caught in the pandemic. He has not had contact. He must bond. This is what Vivek Singh versus Romani Singh also says. Supreme Justice Sikri said, unless the father has a level playing field, you cannot decide custody. You have to give bonding time. You have to give them the same platform. And the kind of things the daughter was expressing to the father. I played a videotape to the judge. He didn't hear it in the open court. I said, this shows that there is a very severe alienation. Now, Justice Ramakrishnan will decide. Which court will decide?
No, father can certainly do better than the father-in-law.
Absolutely. So this is the catchword. Father or father-in-law. The judge says, I'll toss a coin.
So, I mean, you are able to convince that the in-laws have become the outlaws.
Absolutely.
Correct. Ramushan sir.
See, anyhow, some change has come in the habeas corpus in the respect of custody of children. Because the earlier concept was that there is no illegal custody of the child with one of the parents. Now some shift is there depending on, because parental jurisdiction has been taken. ultimately the Supreme Court also said, ultimate decision will not be taken on the who is entitled for permanent custody, etc. will not be done by the family court only. We are not deciding on that. We are only temporarily doing it. Sort out those things there. But all these cases arises only in cases where the foreign nationals or so-called double what do you call the citizenship people,
Well,
and all those things arises. These things are very difficult to, but ultimately, as rightly said by most of the judgments, it is the welfare of the child. Court will have to weigh a balance between who is the better person for the time being to maintain the child or to look after the child. And that is the only thing, because it's an area where a lot of improvement will have to come. Anyway, Supreme Court has to some extent has given some guideline as how these things will have to be done. And there also, as Anil Malhotra has produced certain decisions, says there are contradictory views also on to what extent it can be entertained, what extent it can be maintained, and how this can be done, all those things. Anyhow, ultimately, the principle appears to be that the welfare of the child is the main criteria for the purpose of deciding all those things. That appears to be the correct view for the time for deciding the issue, because the fight between the parents should not spoil the welfare of the child.
But sir, we fall
Correct,
in conflict with 105 countries who have signed the convention, because the convention has a rule of return of habitual residence. Convention,
So not only that, no, there must be some provision must be there. I think there also they will ask for whether
there is a welfare provision, but they say,
no, not only that. I think that they will have to declare that there is no other case pending before any other court in respect of similar issue.
oh sir, there is always a case. There is a violation of a court order or a violation of a parental right. That is the basis of child removal. Definition of child removal is when you take away a child contrary to the rights of the other parent in violation of a court order, or by which circumstances by which you can't express the intentions. So they say normal rule is return the child to the country of habitual residence, and the central authority they coordinate this process. Now this falls foul of our welfare principle. That is why India is different, because every judge in every country of the world says, I am not returning a child to India, because there is no mirror order, first of all. Second, India will not return the child. India will determine independently. So this is where we come in and clash. And it is time we develop a child removal legislation. I was part of the Bindal committee. We have given a bill, and it's time that the Guardian and Wards Act and the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act be amended, as report number 257 of the Law Commission by Justice A.P. Shah says. It is time that legislation steps in to expound rights. It is only then we will have uniformity. So we need stability.
And people are approaching the High Court only because they will get an easy remedy under 226.
But sir,
when it comes to the family court, they may not be, because they will have to wait in the queue. That may be one of the reasons.
Sir, with due respect, sometimes when you are before a very senior bench and judges are close to retirement, to explain the concept of habeas corpus fines. I have had a very bad experience in Gujarat to start with, but then landing up with a very good judge who gave me a beautiful order. So it's a very tough ride. It's an uphill drive. It's not easy, sir. Habeas corpus is not easy.
No, if you apply the strict principles of habeas corpus, probably this may not come, but at the same time,
the conservative view should change.
My experience in Delhi High Court is very good, because in Delhi High Court, habeas corpus goes to a division bench. So in Gujarat, so in Maharashtra.
Kerala also.
In Kerala also.
But in our High Court, it goes before a single bench.
Oh, I see.
And that is because we have these protection matters in which habeas corpus is invoked. So we have about sometimes up to 100.
Normally it will be first bench or the next senior bench.
This is the practice everywhere. In our High Court, it goes to any judge with a criminal roster.
Oh.
But it is good now, because if you have a younger judge, particularly a lawyer judge, it's easy for him to grasp. Now, sometimes to explain to a promoting judge who has been a district judge that that there is something beyond the Guardian and Wards Act is a very tough ride.
You are right. You are absolutely right.
I had experienced that when I sit in the habeas corpus jurisdiction where the persons who are working in Dubai or something, a child matter came, and we have somehow we sent for mediation and it was settled. in the media.
Sir, let us hear from Kodanaram sir also. Justice Kodanaram sir, please.
Sir, I should at the outset thank Brother Anil Malhotra
Sir.
for the beautiful exposition on the subject. I didn't have much opportunity to get into the habeas corpus. Obviously, as Ramakrishnan sir said, I was not in the first 2, 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks.
Learning never ends, sir.
Yeah, that's where the learning is. In fact, the invocation of that principle, parent patriot, is the amazing thing by the court to say jurisdiction or no jurisdiction. And in the end, ultimately give relief to the
welfare
keep the welfare of the child. And at the same time, sometimes it goes against the very principles of the administering justice, in the sense that there is a lacuna, as you rightly pointed out, and the lacuna in the legislative arena, which is required to be rectified. And then probably the courts at some point may point out that and push the legislature also to act on that. Especially now with on one aspect, the prosperity which is available in the other part of the country, and the child being in one part, the other party not able to defend themselves. Even if one has to go and fight in alien jurisdiction, the money resource is required. It's not so easy for Indian couple or Indian persons to go and fight it out either in England or in US. The very expense will kill them. Notwithstanding, they may be right. And more often, I know in my own family, other day when we were suggesting to one of our things, all right, you are getting harassed, if they come to the India, then we will take care of at least physically. Such is the kind of situation prevailing, because it becomes very expensive there to fight.
Not only that, even if a foreign court judgment comes, that will test the law of India also, pursuant section 13 and 48 of the CPC and other things. Otherwise, you won't get there can be enforced here.
No, but in the process, the years pass by. See, the whole problem is that years pass by, and the child, unlike in other cases where property matters or other issues, enforcement, here in this particular case, the child grows. As the child grows, there are also the impressions get developed and the whole host of the things. After all, you are dealing with anything.
Child takes roots.
Yes.
And child may become a major.
Child may become a major. Yeah, there was a case in Supreme Court. Child had turned major. Supreme Court said we have no jurisdiction. The last serious matter I did, it took 6 years. Ultimately, the lady went back with the 2 children. But it was a very painful process. We did 3 rounds from family court to Supreme Court. And as sir pointed out, it's an expensive proposition. Not all can afford the litigation. And then you see, it is a very strange predicament for me as a lawyer also. Well, this is my sustenance and my livelihood. I can cut and piece, but I can't give it up. So one charitable case should not make it into a charity forever. Otherwise, Shyam and I would not have two houses like Shyam has.
That I'll Aero City and Punjab. We are coming down. We have already planned. Ramkumar sir and Prem, myself, we all take book ticket also.
Okay, no problem. From the airport straight to Aero City.
We have open tickets. Only the date is to be.
Well, sir, you should understand, Shyam has been threatening with everybody. Whoever says, he says, I have already booked ticket to Hyderabad many times.
Kodanaram sir has got a house now in Delhi as well as in Hyderabad. So we'll go to both the places.
Probably is trying to get one in the Bangalore also, it appears.
Very good, very good.
Kodanaram sir has already promised us that he is going to take us to Singapore.
We'll do that. Sir, we'll hear from Virupaksha Gowda sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, it was a very excellent session, sir. I worked as a judge family court for about 3 years prior to my retirement. I found that it is very difficult to hear and decide even visitation rights expeditiously. And there is also practical difficulty in enforcement of the visitation rights. Unless there is some direction that the visitation right should be decided in the first hearing itself, and if some modalities are not envisaged for enforcement of the visitation rights, the child will become alienated from the other non-custody parent, and thereafter he will never even visit. He will never even acknowledge
Correct.
that he is the parent. That is the practical problems.
Child is amenable to indoctrination and poisoning by the
Yes. They don't
Study
bring the mother or father will not bring the child even to the court for visitation on some other ground, saying that he has got class, he has got tuition, he is to be taken to the hospital. So we are really helpless in this matter.
Correct. It requires both legislative as well as constitutional court's intervention regarding these things.
No, we had a case. No, when I was a lawyer, we had a case. The case went up to the custody by the appointment of a guardian of a minor. Went up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court held in favor of one of the parents. The child was not returned. Thereafter, the execution petition was filed. The child was brought to the court. But we are finding it very difficult to see the child going with the other parent. And it is very difficult to hand over the child also from the court by force also. That is the pathetic condition which
brainwashing. Constant brainwashing will be there.
Courts will have to.
Correct, sir. Correct. Because you got a question?
Here I
Yes,
have
sir.
one judgment to share before the question.
Yes.
Now, this was seen in Perry Consagara's case by Supreme Court. Now, this matter was fought from the family court to the High Court to the Supreme Court. The child was brought from Kenya by the mother. Mother refused to go back. And the father filed a guardianship petition, not a habeas corpus petition. He succeeded. He succeeded in the High Court also. In Supreme Court, a mirror order was passed. He got a mirror order from Kenya. Child was taken to Kenya, but once the child was in Kenya, he refused to return the child. So Supreme Court jurisdiction was invoked again, and the Supreme Court passed an order declaring him in contempt, and Supreme Court has revoked its judgment and sent the matter back to the family court. So attitudes harden so much sometimes. Now the father says, I fought for 10 years. Now I will not let the child go to India. Just led the Supreme Court to recall its judgment, which was quite a serious issue. But it has been recalled. Perry Consagara, the judgment is gone.
Very true.
Big blow in the mirror order jurisprudence. Shyam, there was a gentleman called Vikas who was...
Yeah, Vikas, please.
Yeah, good morning, sir. It's always a pleasure to hear you, sir. Sir, my question is basically, recently Karnataka High Court passed a judgment where they give direction to all courts that non-custodial parents will allowed to have custody of child during holidays and birthday and all that. Why don't our High Court justice convince on this point normally? Basically, Punjab and Haryana High Court justices are normally in favor of mother always.
You see, there is no hard and fast rule. This judgment you are talking about is a very good judgment on parenting, joint parenting in shared custody. Another judgment by Bombay High Court in Tushar Ubale's case is also very good. Navtej Singh judgment by Delhi High Court is also very good. Now, I don't agree with you. I have myself got a judgment of shared custody and joint parenting by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, where there is bitter acrimony between the two parents. So Monday to Friday, child is with the mother. Child is handed over to father on Saturday. Child remains with father till Sunday. And the child is returned back to the mother on Sunday evening and is there. See, it is how you put it. Now, the problem is that there is no concept of shared parenting, joint parenting in the statute. So therefore, it has to be devised. It has to be improvised. It has to be pleaded. It has to be presented. There is no law in the Guardian and Wards Act or the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act on shared custody, joint parenting. These are alien concepts. So I think what you need is you need to have, I think we need specialist family law lawyers or trained lawyers in the family law jurisprudence, because all general practitioners handle these issues. So therefore, lack of knowledge with the legal fraternity sometimes is a handicap. Plead it, you will succeed. There's no rule. There is no bias with judges. Judges are very good. It's just how you plead them.
And normally 90% of the judges were normally for parent sharing only. Only in few cases where the children were adamant and they may not be able to go and other thing, then only they will allowing to have a interaction with the non-custody parent to get the acquaintance of the child and then take it. That also happening.
Somebody raised a question can an alienated child's views be considered as final? Now, Vivek Singh versus Rumani Singh answers the question. Unless the child is made to spend quality time with the other parent, don't take his views, because the child is polarized. So that can be an answer to that question. So,
sir, you were a judgment name of Punjab and Haryana High Court. Your case, sir, in which case you got shared custody from Punjab and Haryana High Court?
I will just give the name to you. You can dig it up. Aman Benz. The name of the case is Aman Benz.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
You can
Thank you, because we'll go to Sandeep. Sandeep, please.
Sandeep.
Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah, my question. No, so basically, I want to put my view that even in case of there was a question like whether provision of welfare is taken into account in case of child abduction case where it is clearly stated that in case of Hugh Convention, child should be returned. So so I want to highlight here that it is a fact in case of non-Hugh Convention like India and China. So they haven't signed the non-Hugh Convention. That's why it's become problematic for anyone in India to bring back the child back to India, because then they start considering welfare. Because if it is not welfare, then because the removal is like wrong, because both the parents should be consented. If one of the parent is not consented, then it is basically wrongful removal. And like if you decided like welfare after wrongful removal, then I don't know how this will fit in.
Malhotra sir, Sandeep is alluding to the Hague Convention, and your comments on this.
See, all non-Hague countries go to domestic law, and that is for the reason that they are not signatories. There is a strong resistance in India to sign the convention because it is somehow felt that we will be bound down by foreign laws. Now, I really don't think that is a correct view, because even under the convention, there are exceptions on returning of the child. A, when the child clearly expresses that the child will not want to go back. B, when the child will be exposed to grave risk or intolerable harm. Now, these are concepts in which you can make out your exceptions in the domestic law before you sign the convention. And therefore, you can adapt to the convention, fall in a system in place, and still have your own independent primacy. But unless and until we fit into the legal framework in an international perspective, we will reach nowhere. This reservation, no, is not a good idea. The world is changing. We have now accepted relationships of the same sex. We are recognizing rights of persons of third gender. We are opening up on marriages. We are coming to irretrievable breakdown. We are even going to appoint a judge from the gay community. So once we are opening up on so many fronts of thought of expression, the 9-judge constitution bench in Puttu Swami's case has identified a right of privacy. So therefore, I think in children's matters, we need to loosen up. We need to revisit our concepts which are outmoded. We need to seriously dump the Guardian and Wards Act of 1890. It's a 135-year-old law. It doesn't serve any purpose. It is the Guardian and Wards Act which forces a non-custodial parent in India, whether domestically or internationally, to seek the jurisdiction of the court for singular custody. Because that is the only remedy. And if you ask for shared parenting, the judge says, where is it, in what section is it? And that's it. That's the end of it. So it is time we change the statute. That's the only answer.
Sir, one more doubt I have.
Sir.
See, in the context of suppose you take, especially in the context of the child being a citizen of other country because he is born there and he has a natural citizenship. And in which event, which law should prevail?
Sir, my answer is straight away answered by a proposition. See, in a foreign country, jurisdiction is taken by virtue of the fact that you are domiciled in that country. They don't care whether you are of Indian origin or American origin. They say you live in our country, therefore we have jurisdiction. My argument is, this is a child born to parents of Indian origin who are Hindus by religion. My personal law will prevail. Under Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, I carry my Hindu law back on my back. It has extraterritorial application. So I say that unless and until both parents agree to be bound by a law of foreign jurisdiction, the personal law of the parties will apply, because we are still in a stage of a non-convention country. So therefore, regardless, I say my child should be brought back to India and his custody rights should be decided in accordance with personal law, particularly because we still have our permanent domicile in India. Therefore, Hindu law will apply. Therefore, principles of jurisdiction of closest contact should apply. So this theory of jurisdiction of closest contact and jurisdiction of personal law is something you can put as arguments in one favor. Now, if a child is of Hindu religion, child has lived majority of his time in India, why should the English law apply to him? Under what principle? It's an alien law, it's a foreign law. Under British law or American law or Canadian law, the moment there is a little acrimony or a dispute or child welfare issues or violence is concerned, they will take the child away and put them in social care. In India, we don't have social care. Why? Because extended family, grandparents, uncles, aunts are social services. So for us to put our child in social care, just because I have slapped the child, just because I have admonished the child goes and tells the teacher, daddy slapped me today, mother gave me a spanking, oh, they will report to the social service, they get the child away. Now, these are alien concepts to our culture. We discipline our children, we train our children differently. Now, you will be shocked. In Europe, they'll say, why is your child sleeping with you? What is wrong with the child sleeping? But they think it's very wrong. So these westernized concepts don't fit in Hindu religion. So therefore, I think applying westernized principles to conventional or traditional families is not a good idea.
Correct, sir. We'll take a question from Ranjan Majumdar. Ranjan, please.
Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. So my question is to Anil sir, is like if someone is seeking shared custody, so what's the strategy? How should he file petition in the court? Means, yeah.
You first of all, unfortunately, the only way to do is you can't file a shared parenting petition. You have to file a petition under the Guardian and Wards Act, because the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act doesn't contain anything. You have to read the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act into the Guardian and Wards Act as per Section 2 of the HMGA. So therefore, you will file your petition. So I think the best thing to do is to tell the judge, listen, I don't want singular custody. I don't think that is a good idea. I want the child to be in touch with both the parents. And the best thing to do is to draw up a shared parenting plan in one page. To say, this is my proposed parenting plan. Don't leave it to the court to design one. You design one. You say, I want Monday to Friday. I want Monday to Wednesday. I want weekends. I want holidays. Please put it to the other side. So put something concrete before the court. You must understand that the family courts or the district courts in India have 150 to 200 cases. They have no time to make parenting plans for you. If the judge keeps doing that, then how is he going to finish his list? So you put up a concrete proposal, give it to the other side in advance. In family courts, you fortunately have a mediator or you have somebody to assist as an expert. Some courts have started appointing friend of the court or an amicus. There is provision in the family courts to do that. So it can be taken away from the court to somebody where two lawyers can sit or two opposite sides can sit and thrash out a plan. But people have to be trained. See, it is a very bad psychology that the father or mother thinks that the child is his property and the other parent should have no access. As sir was putting it, child has gone to tuition, child has gone for music class, child is ill. So these excuses should go. So if there is a maintenance being given, the judge should say, all right, till you give equal rights, I'm cutting off the maintenance. Or if a child is getting access, the other parent should say, you are getting maintenance only if you give custody. So some kind of a proposal by the council, by the parties is necessary. You have to help the judge to be helped. This is the only way to do it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
Sir, Dilip, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful explanation of the case you conducted. And some doubts cropped up from the facts that you narrated, like and the relevancy of the writ of habeas corpus. See, habeas corpus primarily is a writ issued to get back a body from illegal detention or imprisonment or enforced custody. Here, it was only a custody given by the mother entrusted to her father because her husband was not in station, not in India. So that was given, and that was legal also, that was lawful also. And for a husband to get back, the remedy is under the Guardianship and Wards Act. And he should have approached the court, and without doing that, he rushed to the High Court with a habeas corpus when there was no immediate cause of action or any threat to the child. The emergency transit order came only during the pendency of the habeas corpus. So, what was the locus standi for you to move the habeas corpus before the High Court when there is a statutory remedy and an alternative remedy prescribed?
See, let me explain to you. Facts need to be a little more deep. Now, when the father came back from his overseas place where he was visiting and was stuck in COVID, when he came to visit his wife and children, they were still in India. He wanted her to reunite. The wife refused. He filed a restitution petition. He kept in touch. Now, in the interim, after that, 6 months after that, she quietly left India without telling him that she's leaving. She did not go to England while he was in the US. So in that circumstance, once he had moved a petition for restitution, once he had expressed an intention for the family to reunite, her conferring custody on her parents in preference to the natural father, or without telling the natural father that she is going, gave me cause of action for habeas corpus. And a child is not a furniture or an almirah that you can leave with your father and mother to keep in safe custody. Now the question is, as Shyam very rightly put it, father or father-in-law? That's a one-line question. And habeas corpus answers it. Because Section 6 says, I am father, I am natural guardian. Section 6 doesn't say father, mother, father-in-law, mother-in-law. So once they are out of that category, they have no jurisdiction. And you have to get out of the traditional mindset of the jurisdiction of the habeas corpus. When habeas corpus is invoked in a child custody matter, court does not look at the illegality of the detention or the legality of the detention. Court looks at welfare. This is what Gohar Begum says. This is what Neel Ratan Kundu says. This is what Ruchi Maju says. So therefore, you have to look at habeas corpus by removing your spectacles and looking at it dispassionately. With and with your lovely teeth showing.
Sir, the question of efficacious alternate remedy, it is not a rule of bar or something. It's just a rule of prudence that is being followed. Nothing like, I mean, there's an absolute bar or anything.
No, it's only a rule of convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sir, before it's already 12:03. So, before I go to Prem, we have a word with word from KVJ Rao, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Excellent presentation as usual. It's always a pleasure to hear you, sir, because like I would like to put it, these are pearls of wisdom which no book or should I say like no other teacher, but the person who's experienced can put forth his views, and that's the excellent way that you have done. I mean, it is laudable that you are really fighting the system. Sometimes you're against the court, sometimes you're with the court, sometimes you are an amicus curiae to the court, and these three experiences give you the right perspective to put things in place, which most of us may not have because we may not have had contingencies like you had. Sometimes you have to think quick on the feet, and that only comes with experience. And I know most of the persons here are as learned as you are, but sometimes we're still learning every day. And
I have still to learn aviation law.
Yes, aviation. Unfortunately, aviation law they feel is what should I say, is a pricey law, but it is not. I mean, because earlier, yes, it was because how many people traveled, but today, like with low cost airline, people are traveling. And there are certain problems that come with low-cost airlines, so that is why aviation laws are very important, sir. Otherwise, other than that, there's nothing much.
No, I differ. Shyam, Prem, and I have yet to take off.
You are already high flying, Rao sir. You are flying high.
Sir, once you're thrown into the waters, you have to learn to swim. Do I have a choice? I don't have a choice. So, having said that, sir, excellent. The way you have put it is right, because to be honest with you, and Malhotra sir, I mean, we do face custodial battles in my fraternity are a lot, because extramarital affairs, the percentage is very high in my fraternity.
And that too transnational.
Sorry, sir?
That too transnational. Not confined to a nation.
Yes, sir, it comes with the territory, sir. I mean, you're away from home for 12 days at a stretch. Privacy is there. 2 hands to clap. A lot of things can happen. So if I have to put it that way, and then the problems.
These are very.
Like as my wife.
These are very heavy words.
No, sir. As my wife said, as long as the dirt doesn't come to my doorstep, you're very lucky. You bring that dirt to my doorstep and you watch it. And unfortunately for me, sir, I can't even attempt it because everything is in her name. I won't have money left to fight a battle also.
So I thought being associated with air law also meant being associated with air hostesses.
Yes, sir. I said that, sir. I didn't want to categorize and be sexist, sir. But today, like I said, 2 hands to clap and that's it. And unfortunately for me, my mother taught my wife, better be careful of your husband. Don't travel anywhere in the world without your husband, because it will become a habit. He'll always tell you, "Tu jana, tu ja sakti hai, tu jana." So she makes it a point once in 3 years at least. I have a holiday with the family. I mean, I don't do it they go every year, but once in 3 years I have a holiday with the family.
So, sir, you're not a high flyer.
Sir, I fly every day. That is my problem.
Malhotra's flying is entirely different. Let us see.
Yeah, so that's all in a lighter vein, sir. Thank you once again, Malhotra sir. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. I mean, because of paucity of times, we may not be taking the other questions in the chat box. I'll go straight over to Prem for the concluding remarks. Prem.
Well,
necklace of wisdom.
Unquestionably, that was an enlightening talk. And as we all know, the legal complications that gets multiplied, manifold, when this marital disputes that would step out of the borders of a country And as we can see, the maze of the private international law that deals with the interplay and the conflict of laws of different countries, that also would make issues and make things more and more complex. So today we had Anil Malhotra sir's client also, Sandeep Chu. Actually, it was in that case which was decided by Justice Harinder Singh Sidhu. We were deliberating upon.
Correct. He is very much.
I did not want to identify him to embarrass him.
But we did, sir.
We did. And this question, this particular case considered three aspects, like what I could understand on a reading of the judgment and what was deliberated upon. One was the aspect of jurisdiction, the second was the consideration of the best interest of the child, and the third was whether the order of a foreign court was determinative or not, because it is only one of the factors to be considered. And as Anil Malhotra sir has pointed out, Guhar Begum was the earliest case. And we have a beautiful case from Kerala, a full bench of Kerala High Court, in Margaret versus Dr. Chapo, AR 1970, Kerala, page 1. That's a full bench decision of the Kerala High Court.
Beautiful judgment.
Beautiful judgment, which has dealt with great detail with regard to today's subject in great detail, where the Kerala High Court has almost like recognized the availability of this particular remedy of the habeas corpus to claim the custody of a child. And that was the case where the mother was in Germany. Germany or France, I don't remember, I think it was in Germany. And still, the mother was, this is a must-read judgment. And the law in this regard, it has developed a lot over the period of time. And as of now, it is tried that the constitutional courts, of course, can invoke its extraordinary jurisdiction in the best interest of the child. And I could see that this particular judgment, that Elizabeth Dinshaw's case, I think that was also referred to in this judgment. Then as told Nityanand Raghavan, then you had the Kanika Goyal judgment, 2018, just preceding this Lahari Shakamuri. And latest is that Yashita Sahu judgment, 2020. Yashita Sahu judgment. But I think the sole embargo is that the remedy of this habeas corpus, as Mr. Dilip had sought for a clarification, this particular remedy, it cannot be used for mere enforcement of directions which is given by a foreign court as against a person within its jurisdiction, because that would be converting that jurisdiction more or less like an executing court. Except for that embargo, habeas corpus, of course, and we had I had read somewhere, I think Anil Malhotra sir only forwarded some papers to me with regard to this particular thing, where I could see that certain criteria which the courts would generally look into, especially I think it was some foreign court judgment or something like that, where I could see that if a minor child is removed from the native country because the difficulty of the child to encounter an alien environment, language, custom, then interfering is with the child's overall growth, grooming. See, these are all considerations which the court can take note of, and this has to be taken note of by any court. I think this was some literature sent to me.
Nityanand Raghavan.
Right.
Nityanand Raghavan.
Exactly. I had read it somewhere. And
Yashita Sahu and Tejaswini got followed. Raghavan is the basic judgment.
Oh, and sir, don't you think that more factors which should be borne in mind, like one, if a child is already progressing well in a secure environment, now whatever be the reason, maybe the reasons are too good or too bad, whatever that be, can the court still order for a different placement? Like another reason would be, suppose the father has custody of one child, the mother has custody of another child, like Kiran and Nitya, which we see in your case. See, siblings, they should not be separated.
But in Pratik Gupta, they have been separated because they are
true, sir. But all this should be considered because considerable weight.
Sukriti Arora, just one moment. Sukriti Arora, the lady wept in the court, but the bench said it's been too long. We are sorry. Children have been separated. One child with the father, one child with the mother. What to do?
And sir, as Justice Ramkumar rightly pointed out, young children, especially the girls, because young children, of course, one is that they don't have a degree of maturity or they don't have an understanding of the whole situation. So especially young children, they are normally, it is best placed in the care of their mother. And nowadays what we see is access is given to the adversary parent, not as a matter of right, but as a consolation prize, which the courts are usually giving now. I think that poses some fairly demonstrable risk even to the child.
Correct.
But I think they have to get rid of the parental preference concept. You have to evaluate. There are stay-home fathers now. There are better caring, loving fathers. A child can be given a better bath or be better looked after.
Welfare of the child, ultimately, sir. I mean, we'll have to see the welfare.
Not only that, the child must have the
preference on a gender basis only is a wrong ideology. This I disagree.
Not only the family matters, it is always better the child must have the right to have the joint parenting.
Absolutely. Shared parenting, joint custody.
Hauser wanted to add something?
Yes, sir. About this alienation culture between Western and India. My son faces it. He was in the US, and then when he decided to finally come back to India, his other friends in the US asked him, "Where are you going to be living?" He said, "I'll go and stay with my parents." He's saying, "You're 22, you're still living with your parents." See, they don't understand that in India it's a bonding. I mean, just because you're 18, we don't throw you out of the house. If you wish to go on your own, it is perfectly okay.
So but then you are expected to leave the home once you are 16 or 18.
Yeah.
You are on your own. And once you are 50 or 60, you are expected to go to an old age home.
Old age home.
You don't live with your children.
Our culture is totally different because from childhood we've been taught. See, whether you like it or no, you respect your parents, your grandparents, you have to bow down before them. I mean, that doesn't happen in the Western countries.
This
Absolutely.
is our culture. This is our ideology. This is
exactly, sir. That has come through ages, sir. It is not today or yesterday. America is a 200-year-old country or a 300-year-old country. But ours has come down through ages. We can't just throw that into the bin.
No, that is the reason why the culture of having more the old age houses and this thing coming up in India also, and the children staying outside, throw the money and say that all facilities will be given to you there, enjoy there.
Sir, childcare and parenting are now being outsourced. Let us think seriously about that. And as we come to the end of the 252nd session, I would say that as usual, may just thank Justice Mohammad Mustaq sir for his kindness in introducing Anil Malhotra sir firstly onto our platform, and now he has become a part and parcel of our family. Anil Malhotra sir, it was a pleasure listening to you and having you around. We would like to have you quite often, and I would also like to thank Justice Ramkumar sir, Justice Ramakrishnan sir, Justice Kondaram sir, and all of you wonderful participants for making this Sunday morning worthwhile. It was really enlightening and entertaining to a certain extent. Even the topic was very sensitive. Thank you very much. Till we meet again next week. Please do take care and stay safe.
There are a lot of requests. There are a lot of requests for people who want to hear this talk. So please try to upload it soon.
I will, sir. I know that. Whenever your session is over, I am on gunpoint.
I've got a lot of requests. People want to hear it. I said, okay, we'll have it done.
I'll do that, sir. I'm a bit handicapped because the person who was doing it is now in UK. He's gone for higher studies. I am training 2 others to do that.
I hire Prem Raj assistants.
No, Anil Malhotra, sir. Anil Malhotra, sir. There is one thing which you should tell us.
Yes.
Where do you get your facial done and your manicure done?
Prem would like to have it changed. His present person is not satisfactory.
I'll give you a simple answer. Use linseed oil, til ka tel, on your body.
That is dil ka tel. Very good.
And til ka tel in the morning and 21-year-old single malt in the evening.
Very good. That's the best advice. Always spiritual, sir. That was
and if you can, on a healthy note, eat gooseberry, amla we call it. I eat 6 in the morning, 6 in the evening.
True.
So, sir, with that spiritual advice,
And Shyam, you visit me, you will then have your equally bright expression. Don't worry.
Definitely, sir. I'm looking forward to that.
And don't forget to bring the empty bottles. We'll fill them up. Or you bring full bottles. We will load linseed oil and send them back.
Sir, I hope
No
you're
issues,
not
sir.
getting
No issues.
consideration for the 21-year malt.
Oh, sir, the better. The best is Macallan.
Macallan.
Glenmorangie and Glenfiddich.
Yeah,
And now excise duty has gone down and the prices have rock bottom dropped.
So, you know, now the clients know what to bring.
To conduct one session on this.
One session exclusively on spiritual thoughts.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Session either in Bangalore or in Kerala or Hyderabad.
Yes, sir, I am game anywhere.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a nice Sunday.
Okay.